Here we go. Here we go. Oh my gosh. One technical difficulty after another.
You're doing fine.
Let's
man.
go in. Let's go in. Oh my gosh. Welcome in finally, guys.
We've just been talking to nobody for the past 16 minutes because Ronnie forgot to check public because we've been doing private for so long. But hey, we had 16 minutes live, and we thought the world, the universe was watching.
Oh
so
my gosh.
At least we got warmed up. All right, so go with
live and learn.
Come on, you've been working on the intro for all. You've been practicing the intro for all week, Ronnie.
All right, finally, welcome in, guys, to the premiere episode of the Funshop with Greg and Ronnie. This is Greg, and I am Ronnie. We are here at Greg's Funshop in Los Angeles, California, streaming to you live.
We are live right now, yeah.
Man.
But hey, dude, look, man, it happens. I'm glad you noticed it at least at 16 minutes. And it wasn't like the whole, it wasn't like the whole time.
Hey, the first time they launched the Titanic, it sank, right? So we're still floating, and we're paddling hard, man.
Yeah,
we're paddling upstream, but we're paddling to you. So hey, thank you guys for slowly trickling in. If you guys were in here 15 minutes ago, I apologize. We're finally on the right track, and let me enable the chat too. Looks like we're firing on all cylinders.
Yep.
So once again, guys, thank you for your patience and thank you for stopping in. We're here finally after months of planning and trial and error and setting up the studio and asking some of you guys random questions about cameras and casting and stuff.
Give your shouts
we're
out.
Finally here. Big shout out to Ty Justice. I talked to him at Retro Hex Collects in Bell about casting. He has a great channel at FleaCon. He sells a lot of the flea markets. I asked him about cameras and stuff, and he does some great editing. And even our good buddy, The Enemy Planet, I talked to him about some mirrorless cameras and stuff for the studio. So big helps.
My wife reminded me we had some lights that
thank you, Lisa.
We have to buy. And
terrific.
My Griffey Jams, my neighbor, who works on podcasts, he actually gave us some really good advice yesterday that we weren't even thinking about, which
my gosh,
included plugging in an Ethernet cable rather than using the Wi-Fi. But hey,
we're here now, and firing on all cylinders and planning out shows for you guys.
Well,
so
and I'd said to you too from the beginning, I think it's always good to, like, I think when you're starting something like this, because typically and obviously the goal is that we'd have like a whole crew, right? Like we'd have a director and a producer and camera operators and lighting, and
we're all here.
We're all
here.
We're here. So,
here.
But it's great though. It's great that how to do it now, and you have full control over it. And I think that when you're starting something new, sometimes that's just the best thing to do, especially from going from talking about doing the podcast to actually doing it.
Yeah. Oh, but we are here finally.
We're here, yeah. So
we're here at the Fun Shop. A lot of people may not know what this is or what the Fun Shop is all about. So why don't you tell them about what Greg's Fun Shop is? What it's about?
Yeah, so Greg's Fun Shop is my store, my brand, I guess you could say. I sort of I've been selling on eBay since 1998.
Okay, 98.
So
it's about
27 years. Yeah. So, and during I always that's kind of what I did in college, like I bought and sold stuff. And
what did you start with?
What did I start selling?
Yeah, what did you start with on eBay?
Oh, actually, okay, it's
sorry to cut you off.
No, that's a good question. So actually, I'll tell you. So okay, there was two ways I started on eBay. I remember I was on a bus. I don't remember where it was. Like it was like summer camp or something where there was like different ages of kids, and I was like sitting next to this like 15-year-old kid, and I must have been like 18 or something.
Okay.
And we were talking, and he was telling me about eBay, and I was like, yeah, I just heard about it. I'm thinking about doing it. And he was telling me that he was like selling these. Did you ever know that band Less Than Jake?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so he was selling Less Than Jake records and getting like crazy money.
Okay.
And this was like in 1998 even.
They were rare prints.
Well, yeah, like especially back then, like Less Than Jake they were sort of like known for creating like all these they were like putting out a ton of merch, ton of 7 inches. And I guess at the time, they had just signed to Capitol, and so they were kind of getting more popular. And he was like, "Oh, I got like $100 for this record," and I was like, "Oh, damn!" I was like, "I have those records, and I don't really I don't have to have them anymore." So it kind of started like that. So I actually started selling like punk records.
Okay.
And then and then a little later on, well, around that time I started working for this pop culture store called Populux in Orlando. I sort of It's kind of a funny story. I was like driving and I saw this sandwich board with a painting of Mr. T on it, like a cartoon Mr. T. And so, obviously if anyone knows me, I collect Mr. T stuff. I used to have the biggest collection in the world, but shout out Ben Leach now who has it. But so I kind of did this U-turn and I went into the store and ended up that this guy Brian, he was actually selling his Mr. T collection.
Okay.
And which was odd because this was 1998 and he hadn't, I don't think he'd even bought anything on eBay. It was mostly through like Toy Shop magazine or like different kind of mail orders or just going to other stores around the country or the world. And so I learned a lot from him, so, it really, my kind of introduction to sort of reselling, I used to go to the flea markets, like, my brother probably bought me to the flea market when I was like 5 years old, so it's like I've kind of always been like going into flea markets and tag sales and, antique shows and antique malls. And I remember when I was in middle school, I went to this one kind of like local flea market and I remember ended up buying a box of trading cards and they were like non-sports cards. And I remember most of them were Brady Bunch. And this was like, like early to mid 90s. Right. And so, I mean, I was too young for Brady Bunch, but at the time, I mean, of course, even then when we were kids, they were showing it all the time. So I knew the Brady Bunch, but I didn't know much about the cards. And I remember bringing him to the local comic shop, Cliff's Books in DeLand, Florida. It's still there, so shout out Cliff. Which is pretty impressive. But I remember bringing them in and saying like, "Hey, man, I found these cards." And he was like, "Oh, those are actually pretty valuable." And I was like, "Okay." And he's like, I'll give you $100 in credit for them." And like, dude, I'm in like 7th grade.
Sold.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, what? Really? I mean, I think they were worth considerably more than that. But, it didn't matter to me because what I learned at an early age was like, oh man, I could find something that I understand has a collectability or value, and then I could sort of trade it or sell it to get something that I actually wanted.
Right.
Which, I think that's it's an interesting sort of lesson to learn when you're a kid because, if you're already kind of into collecting and buying and you're going to flea markets and you're going to tag sales. So, dude, I mean, it's funny, like I've sold some really weird things. I mean, I would literally just sell anything that I could like sort of flip. I remember, I remember finding like weird taxidermy, of course, in Florida. And that always sold really well. And then, of course, I was obviously attracted to stuff that I liked, I think like a lot of people,
of course.
Or stuff that you know about. So yeah, it kind of started like that. And then now, it's had my eBay stores had different names over the years, but I kind of came up with this idea of Greg's Fun Shop because I always liked the idea of a fun shop where, it's sort of, kind of fun shop would always, it was kind of like they would sell a little bit of everything. So it kind of came out from the sort of like magic store, but they would, they would have magic tricks, but they'd also have like masks and like, like little trinkets and gags and novelties, kind of like Johnson P. Smith catalog, if you're familiar with that.
Did they have the spindle with all the pranks on people like whoopee cushions and all that, the buzzers?
Yeah.
Right.
So I always liked the idea of a fun shop because like one, I just like the name because like, ultimately like, it's like, you having fun yet? It's like you already know going into it,
fun?
It's supposed to be fun, right? And so I think that sort of goes like with the way that I collect and what I sell because even though I can say there's certain things that I might focus on, I sort of have this general vision. So anything that I consider fun, so I have the eBay shop, and then, obviously it's like when we were thinking about, the podcast and what we're going to name and what we're going to do. I mean, the one thing that I think we had that a lot of people don't is, we had a perfect set,
right?
Which was
right. It was built in.
Apart from the fact that I think this might be the first time that we're actually sitting together in here, because it used to look like a Hoarders episode where it was like a little, path to get through. So, it did, while you were figuring out the equipment and stuff, I was clearing
space for the equipment.
Space and so, but it's there's a lot going on, and so it's like you kind of can get an idea of the stuff that I sell or collect, but
this is the lifelong journey, the passion. The passion's taking you this far.
Yeah,
to see all this stuff.
yeah. So good or bad, it's all here, and now we get to talk about it, and people could see it. I don't. It's funny too, because I don't generally, I kind of like to keep my space private. In a lot of ways, like I'm very usually particular about kind of who I land into my fun shop. So, the other cool thing too is like now everybody gets to see a sneak peek inside, and for me, collecting, that's been my passion. I think with collecting has always been like less of the value, or like what I could like less of like the investment value, even though, I'd be wrong to say that's not on my mind. I think it's on everybody's mind. But I always like for me, it was more about like the show off kind of bragging rights, but more so like, not like, oh, look what I have and you don't, but just more like curating something where somebody could come in and be like, wow, this is really cool stuff.
Right.
And, people could look at it, and I could tell stories, and, I could show things, and that's, so for me, it's exciting too, because it's like, I like for people to see the stuff that I found, and, especially if it's something that somebody hasn't seen before.
Right. I think to tangent off real quick, to share one of my favorite quotes that's relevant to this. It was on a Suck Lord Suck Talk with Frank Kozik, R.I.P.
Rest in peace.
But one of my favorite quotes, when they were talking about why people buy things, and Frank was like, people buy things for two reasons. One is to feel comforted, and two is to have some sort of social status, So I feel like, with the, comforting things is one thing, but like with the things we're talking about now in the hobby, it's like there is sort of kind of like a social status thing built in, having a grail or finding a rare thing, or having the eye or the luck,
Right.
There's something built in where it's like, people find things, and it's interesting, or people buy things.
Yeah.
So
no, that's I agree 100%.
My and also, just to throw in my 2 cents, I got on eBay around 99, and a cousin of mine, he was buying like Nike Dunks and like flipping Bapestas and Bape and stuff. So he was doing that, and I was watching him, and he's like making money flipping stuff that he wore already, like street fashion. I'm like, what the heck? So I started going on, buying some Dunks, and then you start exploring and finding other things. And then once I found like those Juicy Honey Checky, like it was over. Like, oh, I found my thing, and I was stuck in that.
That's a whole other episode.
Yeah, oh
we
man,
gotta talk about
for
those.
years, But if you follow our Instagram profiles and stuff, you'll find little nooks of what we collect and what we're interested in.
Yeah.
And speaking of eBay, and moving on, some current event news with eBay.
Yeah, sure.
Or is there anything else you need to?
No. I mean, it's a good segue into something we wanted that caught our eye this
kind
week.
Of pertinent to, very pertinent to collectors, and especially those that like to snipe eBay auctions like I do. They're changing some of their policies, or maybe they're in a test phase with some of their auction ending policies, where they're ending softer with like a 2-minute kind of buffer thing. Can you explain a little bit more about that? Or
yeah, I mean, I was looking up before we started to see if I could find any more information, and it seems like they're, like you said, they're just in the testing phase. But essentially, what they currently have is, you start an auction on Sunday at 5 p.m. It ends the next Sunday at 5 p.m. and you can bid up until 4:59 and 59 seconds, right? So, a lot of times you'll see people that don't necessarily understand eBay, they'll complain and say, "Oh, I was the high bidder, and at the last minute, like all these bids came in," and they think it's like eBay's fault or it's a scam or something. It's like, well, no. I mean, there's sniper programs. Like I use this one called Gixen.
Gixen.
Yeah,
How do you
it's
spell that?
Gixen. It's a free one, but you can pay like $5 a year, and they give you can get to more of their dedicated server. But honestly, I feel like eBay in general, and even my store, I've kind of gone away from the auctions. Most of my stuff is buy it now.
The best offers.
Yeah, because, I think, more so than any time that we've been alive, there's just this sort of instantaneous kind of, people just want things right away. They don't want to wait. Right. And, you have Whatnot, which, we've talked about, but we haven't sold on there. But, if you're unfamiliar with Whatnot, I mean, generally it's a live auction where you're just with the one person selling the items through the app. But generally what most people do is they'll do a 10-second auction.
Oh, okay.
So they'll start something at $1, and then every 10 seconds it resets once somebody bids.
Right. I've seen that.
And this isn't exactly how it worked. This will be kind of more like what happens in Yahoo Japan, where they already have that kind of that thing where the auction will end. And then I know with Heritage in particular, some of their auctions, they do that as well, but I think it's 30 minutes.
Wow.
But you have to have bid before the close of the auction
to be one of
those people.
Understood.
So it's not like you can wait till the auction has gone
and put in your first
6
bid.
minutes and put into first bid. So, essentially, I mean, for me as a seller, I think it's great because, how many times have we sold something and the person's like, "Oh, I wasn't at my computer. I would have bid more." Or if the person doesn't pay, contact me,
Or maybe nobody bid and it's like, "Can you reopen that auction?"
Right. Or no, but yeah, exactly. So I think as a seller, I've heard some horror stories for people that have, bought things on Heritage or even Yahoo, where it's like, if the auction's supposed to end at 10 o'clock and they're up to 1 a.m. because that other person that wants it is just continuing to bid, So, I think that, it's going to be interesting. I think, I think that they're seeing that the auction is kind of dying, and, so I don't know. Maybe it's because they want to try to get that, that's what eBay's been known for,
right.
is an auction third-party site. And, there's something to be said. I mean, they did start eBay Live, which, kind of takes that Whatnot model. But yeah, it's going to be curious to see. And I know right now, I think they're just testing it with certain categories like trading cards and sports cards. So, who knows? It might not be something that they actually install for every auction. Or, I think me personally, I think that they should make it an option.
Right.
I think that would be.
But then there'd be too much. Then some auctions would have it, some auctions wouldn't. I guess right now in the testing phase, they're testing it on with trading card auctions, right?
Yeah, but trading cards is the perfect thing, right?
Yeah.
Because you could put that snipe in, and it could literally go for $1 more than your high bid. And so I think that that's where they're thinking, well, maybe we can get some more money out of it, even if it only goes for an extra 10 minutes. I mean, you could be talking about hundreds or even thousands of dollars.
And the market, I guess the eBay market is just flooded with trading cards. So it's
also I think certain things what I always tell people about if you're deciding to do an auction or not, and kind of what I do too, is I'll auction something, generally speaking, if I buy it for a really low price. Okay, for instance, one time, this was, probably 20 years ago, I remember I was living in New York and I went back to Florida to visit my parents, and I was at a yard sale, and I found an Omega Speedmaster for $1.
Wow.
Literally $1.
And you knew it was real? You guys?
No, I knew it was real. I mean, there was this old guy, but it was one of those things where it's now, I mean, it probably would have been easier for me to find out about it, but this was kind of pre, internet and stuff. Mm-hmm. I found a little information, but I was like, okay, I don't know what this is worth, but I know that if I start it for $1, there's going to be plenty of people who are going to be looking for this watch. And then, I think maybe it sold for $600 or $700, right? And maybe it was $1,000 watch or a $2,000 watch. But one, I didn't know anything about it except that it was a valuable watch. And two, I knew that there's going to be a lot of people, right? More recently, I had bought a copy of X-Men 1 from a friend, right?
Okay.
It graded, I think, a 1.5. So
not the Jim Lee one, the 60s one.
Yeah, the
right.
64 or
Right.
whatever it is, right? So I bought it raw. I got it graded. It came in at like a 1.5.
Okay.
Now, I knew there was a few 1.5s up there and different values. Let's say, I don't know, 2,500, 3,500, 4,000, right? Now, I could have put it up and I could have had it just sit there hoping that I got but I didn't have that. Like, I had less into it than I knew what it would go for.
Right.
So for me, it's like, well, I'm going to start that at $1 and just see where it goes. And then it actually ended around where the buy it now was, because there were just people there. Because and I guess that's the thing about the auction is that, it's more about the action, right? It's about the hope that you can get something for less than it's worth.
Right.
Or less than, yeah. Or, and then the other thing is my hope as a seller is that, we've all been on the other side of it where it becomes like this psychological thing where it's like, well, I'm not going to let that guy beat me over
right.
50
yeah,
bucks.
Of course. Yeah. You just want to lose.
$20.
You want to win.
You want to win.
Uh-huh.
So you might end up spending as much as you would have spent, if you just wanted the comic.
Right. Right. If you just bought it straight up.
I don't know. I think it's funny because when I talk about it, I feel like people think it's obvious, but then I realize like some people just don't think about that. Like as far as like why you should or shouldn't do an auction.
Right. I generally like to, I feel like I like to list it, buy now with the best offer. And like, that's as much as I think I can get out of this. And I go down.
Yeah. I think that's how most people do it now because well, that's the thing, right? Is now, you saw that that's what eBay, that's sort of why people, I guess, didn't like eBay or don't like eBay, because what happened was, things that were sort of rare or scarce, once everybody starts looking in their closet or attic or basement, these things that you might have been lucky to see one of, all of a sudden you're seeing 10 of. So, generally buy it now is the best thing because most of the time when you're listing something, there's other comps on eBay.
Right.
So, you might be putting something up and there's 4 other things that are up of the same thing. And so, at that point, or on the flip side, you might have something where, there is no history of the price and it's something that's, so obscure, you can't find any information online. Right. And your goal is to hopefully find that one person that sees the same value you do in that item. Where it's not, and that kind of goes into that whole thing. Well, it's worth what somebody's willing to pay.
It's true.
But that's true. And that's where it becomes true. Of course, I'll get the I think the other day I posted something where someone was like, I don't know what you're smoking, but that this thing is $250 more than what it should be.
Right.
I'm not going to say what I responded, but it was. I basically said I'm smoking. You're blocked. Because my friend later gave me the best advice. He's like, eBay allows you to block 5,000 people. Use it. And so use it. Just block people. Because look, we've all dealt with those people, and your first thing is you want to go back and forth with people, and it's not worth it. It's not worth it to go back and forth with people on eBay. It's not worth it to go back and forth with people on social media. It's just not worth it. It's not worth your time. It's not worth your energy.
This is our PSA. It's not worth it. It's not worth it.
It's not worth it. So you block, and that's it. You forget about them because who cares? Yeah, it's like that person isn't your friend. The best is like somebody buys something, you ship it, that's it. Yeah. Okay, maybe you meet me in person one day and you say hi, but I'm not trying to be your friend. I've met friends, but look, it's a business, and you got to treat. You got to remember that some people are doing this as a hobby, some people are doing it to pay their bills, and all eBay is a third party, right? It's just a way to do it safely. Yeah. So if you see something on eBay and it's too much money, just don't say anything. You don't have to. And because the other thing is too is, I have to put stuff up double or triple on eBay what I actually want for it. I'm kind of giving away a secret.
Because of the fees and stuff?
No, because everybody wants to talk you down.
Right.
So if if something's worth $50, you can't put it for sale for $50 because people are going to offer you 30. Yeah. So you got to put it for 100, so they offer you the 50 that you wanted in the first place.
Where's that meme?
That meme? And then they think they're getting half off.
Right.
Which but that also is how that's why when you're buying for your site or your store, you have to keep that also in mind. Yeah. And I like to that's why I generally like to triple my money of things that I buy, so that even if I have to put it half off, which I don't necessarily want to do, I can still make money on it. It's just because that's just what eBay's become. I mean, there's so many more opportunities than ever for people to buy collectibles and to spend their money.
That's why I think it's also important for people to keep in mind eBay is not the only sales site, right? It's not the only marketplace. That's why we go to Mercari and we go to Facebook Marketplace and you explore and check out some of these other sites and stuff. Because that's not the only marketplace.
I just like eBay because it's been around for a long time.
Right.
I've been on it for a long time, and generally, I think they do a pretty good job. I
like the primary colors of their logo. It really pulls me in.
But there's something about eBay where it's like if it's not broke, don't fix it. And they've obviously done some things that have pissed people off. And, I think this iteration of eBay is okay. I don't know that it's the best. I mean, the other problem too is you always got to be careful when you're talking to people. Not careful, but like a lot of times, like people's biggest gripe with eBay is like, and one thing that annoys me is like when people call it Fleabay. It's just like, I don't know. It just annoys me because it's like, I don't like, for all the like frustration that people have, they forget that eBay is just a platform, and it's putting you. It's a tool, and it also gives you incentive. I think the thing that people are the most upset about, and what kind of upset me before I started doing eBay more using it as a full-time tool, is that for years eBay was kind of this sort of casual kind of platform, kind of like Facebook Marketplace, right? Where it's like, anybody can go on Facebook Marketplace and they can put an old, pair of boots, a bucket, or like a Ferrari, right? And they're just basically dealing with the person, and it's not like Facebook is taking any fees, right? So I think there's this thing where, when someone sells something on eBay and then they're like, oh man, I had to pay them all these fees. And it's like, well, yeah, that's kind of what they had to do to start competing with like other platforms, And so with eBay, so I don't know what my point was. I think more to the fact that I just think that eBay is still around because it's a solid service. But I do think that, sites like Whatnot is really coming after them. I know they started eBay Live, so I think that's changing things. But I think that, there is that sort of, people want to go back to seemingly dealing with people, kind of person to person.
Yeah, of course.
Right. And, in some ways, you as a seller, like I have to have that buffer, right? Like I have to have that back button. I have to get eBay involved when, the thing says delivered at their house and they're like, I didn't get it. It's like, well, check with your neighbors, check with your family, check with your post office.
There's a lot that goes into the selling, and when things don't go right, people like to blame eBay when it has to do with the actual person, So eBay gets a bad rap sometimes.
Or just the post office.
Right.
And, but yeah, so we'll see. I mean, I think that, I actually am curious to see what it does. I don't think it could hurt them. I mean, because I think, I don't know their internal numbers, but I know personally, I mean, I used to have like, every week I'd have hundreds and hundreds of auctions. And, you go to my store now, I think I have over 6,000 items and I have 0 auctions right now.
Right.
Because, I just had some auctions end, but, I might have 10 to 20 a week where, in the past, it's like all I would do is auction.
Right, and you deal with a lot less people when it's just buying, and like with the auctions, like every bidder.
And like
I mean,
like I said,
involved.
people want stuff now. They want that instant gratification. They don't want to wait and hope, and they don't. And I guess they also, they don't want to get sniped. They don't want to like miss it. So,
I want a golden goose for Easter now. Oh, get me a gold goose, Daddy.
Yeah. What do you get when your child's a brat?
Well, yeah. Lots of marketplaces. eBay is one. Moving on. What else we got going on?
So another thing that we enjoy to do, both Ronnie and I, and obviously you can see from some of the things around, is we like art. We're artists ourselves, but we also like to go see art and go out to different events in the Los Angeles area. And one of my favorite galleries in Los Angeles is Beyond the Streets
on La Brea.
Mm-hmm. And that's Roger Gassman, one of the main founder, and does some great lots of graffiti, street art.
Mm-hmm.
You might have seen their, they had like the big Beyond the Street show in Los Angeles and then in New York, where they, showed off pieces from, and the history of graffiti. And there's a show this Friday that is happening, and it's with the Deadly Prey Gallery
from
Chicago. And if you're not familiar with Deadly Prey Gallery, they actually started, I don't know how long they've been. Maybe, has it been about 10 years? A little less than 10 years.
Around there.
Yeah. And look, I it's funny because even though I've talked with them, I don't know, I don't know the exact story, but I think essentially was, that they had a gallery. They were looking to kind of change direction or see. And, this poster that's behind me, the Child's Play, it's probably actually way more noticeable now, or way more identifiable now of what it is than it was years ago.
Right.
And so this is actually one of the posters that they had in Ghana. There's this really good book called Extreme Canvas. I thought I had the copy here, and it was funny because I think I was telling you this, like, before I moved to New York, I was living in Central Florida, and my brother, he was living in New York. He was a nurse, and so he had been there since, I think, 1990.
Okay.
And so as I got older, I would go visit him. And I remember one time going to the Tower Record store when they still had one, and they had this section of books that were just marked down. And I remember buying that book for like nothing, like $16.99, and it just blew me away, because essentially what it was back in the 80s into the 90s, and maybe even now to I don't know the current state, but they would have these sort of mobile cinemas in Ghana, and because they didn't really have the, and a lot of times from what I understood, it was like they would just like roll a TV out,
right,
or it's like a kind of a primitive projector,
or like in a van
or something. And so to get people to come to these movies, like they weren't dubbed, they didn't have anybody to explain it, so they had to go with things that you kind of didn't have to speak English to get it. So there's a lot of horror and action films,
right.
And then these artists, they would kind of take their own, they would use their imagination and make these sort of, wild kind of versions. So, in this case, you have a guy with like a machine gun, and, there's like a couple, it's like, it's like the box art from Child's Play 1. And I think like Child's Play, is that 2 or 3?
You would know better than me. I feel like that's 2.
That's 2, yeah. But I mean, you could just Google Ghana movie poster. Anyways, what I like about so this Friday, Beyond the Street is doing exhibition with Deadly Prey, and so what Deadly Prey did is they actually went out to Africa, and they befriended all the artists,
right? And
they started like basically representing them,
right?
Because I don't think these guys were getting paid that much. And so now, it's sort of become a thing where, they're making new ones or they're making custom ones, you know,
Right.
and I'm sure if you've seen them, I mean, and they're just, you know, they're just so ridiculous that, you know, people just love the art on them. So, you know, if you're in the LA area, you know, this Friday, you know, Beyond the Streets is having the show. And even if you know, if you're not here, you know, Google, you know, Deadly Prey. You know, we'll probably put some of the links.
Yeah,
in
we'll
the,
post it up on our Instagram.
well, even in the show.
Oh yeah, in the comments and stuff.
Yeah,
still kind of new at this, so
yeah,
you know,
yeah. We're still.
But what? Yeah, we'll throw links in the in the comments and stuff and let them know. I remember just to throw in my 2 cents. The first time I ever saw a Ghana poster was at the Mishka LA store, by the stairs.
Yeah,
and I remember it was Army of Darkness, and it's the pose on the front of the cover where Ash is holding the head, but like they both had the same face or something like that, or like the art was really weird. It's like, I know that's Army of Darkness, but it's not.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think that's the one thing is if you start to look at some of the older ones. I mean, you know, there is, and I don't want to. I'm not saying it, but you know, if there is anything about, you know, once things start to become more popular, you know, I think one of the appeals, like if you were first started getting into them, is just like how wacky they were, because you're like, where the heck are these guys getting this from?
Right.
Where
right.
now, you know, sometimes you look at it and you're like, okay, well, anybody could have told them to do that. You know, because I remember like my friend, like Ezra and Zach, you know, from Middle Beyond, and
exactly.
And you know, I remember like they were like kind of the first guys that I knew that had gotten some custom work done.
Right.
And I remember Ezra would just sort of tell me, he's like, you know, I would give them like, okay, I want the composition to look like this poster, but like I want you to add like this creature, and I want to have like some guy getting his like head chopped off, and you know, but I don't know. I mean, who knows who was I don't know exactly who was directing them, you know, art directing them in Africa, but I imagine that, you know, a lot of this they were just coming up, or you know, they wanted it to be like as extreme and as violent as possible to like bring people in, especially if like they had no idea what us. You know.
Yeah, I love that. They were definitely one of the first to where I've seen like Ghana movie art like applied to, you know, like a T-shirt or something that we would buy and use. The second one was DKE Toys, I think a few years ago, for one of their toy releases. The Sucklord, once again, Sucklord and Leonardo. The Ghana artist had a collaboration.
Yeah,
and Leonardo was one of my favorite. Sucklord, of course, one of my favorite bootleg designers, and they did a collab, and it was just perfect. You know, like two worlds like clashing.
Yeah, I pretty much I think I've bought one every time they've done that.
It's amazing, and I think other artists are starting to do that now too, like applying that Ghana art. So
I also know like there's some cool ones in the Brain Dead studio in Fairfax.
Okay.
I think Kyle saw him in my store first, but he has some good ones. You know, I'll just tell a quick story. I was telling someone the other day. It's kind of so this Chucky one's kind of funny because I got it from a friend of mine. I was with my friend in Philadelphia, my friend Adam, and this guy Eric was over his house, and Adam Wallachavage, if you remember, remember Adam.
I remember the lamps.
The lamps, yeah. So his friend Eric, we started talking about these posters, and he's a documentary filmmaker, and he had mentioned that he'd went to Ghana this was years ago. He'd went to Ghana for some production he was working on, and he knew about the posters, and he's like, I want to find one for sale. So we found this guy, and he bought a couple, and then he went a year later, and he was like, oh, I should hit up that guy and see if he has any. So he calls the guy, and then the next morning he wakes up and he's getting a call from the hotel, downstairs, and they're like, sir, you need to come down here immediately. And so the guy ends up bringing like 300 of these posters and just like lays them out all on the ground in front of the hotel. And he was like, the people were just like freaking out. They're like, you got to get this out of here. Da, 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 da. And then, the guy's trying to, and so come to find out, the guy thought he wanted to buy all of them.
Oh no. Oh my god.
And he's like, no, man, like I just want to buy like 2. And so I guess he bought this Chucky one and another one.
Okay.
And I don't remember what it was, but he was like, "Yeah, dude." He's like, "My wife won't let me hang out at the." I go, "Well, I'll buy it." So I bought it from him, and I don't know if my wife would let me put it up in the house, but
that's why they're in
that's
here.
why it's in the fun shop. So it kind of doesn't really matter. But I don't know. I just think that photo, because I don't know. I just imagine that story in my mind, and I just imagine this like whole sea, and I'm thinking, I was like, I would have bought everyone.
Yeah.
So it's just like
so many.
It's so many, but
I'm trying to remember where I first discovered Deadly Prey. It might have just been on Instagram or something. I'm trying to think where I, like, after Mishka, like where I kind of saw them and where I bought my first. I definitely bought them from Deadly Prey.
Did you go to Hyena when they had a thing?
I was actually in kind of like I was texting with Brian from Deadly Prey, and I actually like took some pictures for him and stuff.
Oh, cool.
When we went to that one. Yeah, so that was one of the first.
That was an early one.
I feel like years ago, before I even knew them, like after I researched online, there was like a big exhibition in like at an art gallery in Chinatown, where they like had a bunch. If you like search Ghana posters, you'll still see it pop up,
Yeah.
But that was a while ago.
Yeah, but Deadly Prey, man, it's gonna be a great show to check out, and I can't wait to see the merch they have. Ooh. Because one thing, if you haven't been to the Beyond the Streets, I mean, their gift shop is like incredible. I mean, they just do it's
what it's all about. The gift shop.
But I mean, they stock a really cool selection of like books that they've produced and other art books. But then anytime they have any kind of exhibition, they always just make the coolest stuff. So I'm sure there'll be a special book. I'm sure there'll be T-shirts, bags, hats, and maybe originals for sale and stuff like that. So it could be. Could be dangerous for you, man. Could be a dangerous night.
Like, my walls are looking kind of bare in my room. I don't know.
I mean, they fill up a lot of white right away.
But I believe I think it's called VHS Dreams or VHS something. I think the show's called VHS Dreams. But is that Beyond the Streets in La Brea? I think it's starting this Friday night. Yeah, opening is Friday night. So go on there, check it out. If you like them, you're gonna love. If you already know them and you love them, you're gonna love it. If you don't know about it, go check it out.
Well, and if you're not in LA or you can't make it too, I mean, I'm sure they'll have stuff for sale on their site.
Okay.
Right. So if you're into that stuff,
go check it out.
It'll be worth checking out.
Beyond the Streets. So. Awesome. Can't wait.
I know. That's going to be a fun one. I'm actually looking forward to that. I mean, honestly, I like anything that. I don't know that I've been to a show at Beyond the Streets that I've not liked.
Yeah, and the same goes for Deadly Prey. So it's
kind of perfect.
It's like chocolate and peanut butter for all of you who aren't allergic.
And then let's see. So that's on Friday. Is there any toy shows or anything going on this weekend?
Not this weekend. It's kind of bare for me. The next one that I'm going to be a part of is I don't know if it's yearly or biannual toy show called Geeking Out in La Mirada, thrown by the boys over at Toy Depot in Whittier. 10722 Whittier, not Whittier Boulevard. It's Beverly Boulevard. The event's called Geeking Out. We got these flyers at the toy shop right now. If you go down there, it's great for free admission after 11 a.m. or for a lot of you toy hunters looking for the good stuff, it's half off if you get the flyer, which is available at the toy shop. Now, I will be selling there. For those of you that know, also Lo-Fi G.I. Joes. G.I. Joes has been one of my fortes for a long time.
Yeah, so you're a big G.I. Joe
guy. I'm going to bring those. And I guess it's pretty confirmed, but we haven't announced it online. But I guess you guys will know first. Having a Labubu tattoo artist at the Geeking Out toy show. You can find him at Space Hustle. Jose Arvizu, I believe. Space Hustle on Instagram. I got a lot of work done by him.
I think you should get a Honey Labubu child tattoo.
Well, no, I'm not getting tattooed on mine. We're getting the Labubus tattooed. No, I'm not getting tattooed.
Oh, I thought he's going to tattoo Labubus.
Yeah, he's going to tattoo Labubus on... Nah.
He's tattooing the Labubus?
Yeah, so
well, wait, but how could you... How? I thought they're like plush.
They're plush, but there's also I don't know. It's a hard. I don't know if it's sofubi or I don't know what's. It's a harder material that
Like on their face or whatever.
yeah, the faces, the paws, like kind of like think Manchi-Chi, right? Manchi-Chis, they're fur and also plastic. And
Now, is this guy? He's a tattoo artist that realized he could tattoo on Labubus, or
Yeah.
he's like, or this is his shtick. Like he's like, I tattoo toys.
okay, so I would say his how do I say this? His look most of his work is a lot of is based on like Japanese art, like anime, Pokemon, stuff like that. He's influenced by that. So like the cutesy stuff, yeah. I don't think he discovered or realized it. I think it was like other artists that discovered they could tattoo Labubus and stuff. But last time I talked to him, he said he had an appointment to tattoo one this week. So it's kind of catching on, you know. And
Right.
I'm like waiting for like, you know, to see flash sheets and stuff. Because I mean, it's pretty universal, the size of their faces and whatnot, and like, you know, the area that you can actually get tattooed. So I mean, I just want to do something, you know, interesting and weird and kind of relevant to, you know, what's going on. And
So that's you're bringing him as like you're
As a guest
you're
at my
introducing
table.
to people like, hey, this
Yeah.
is the guy who can tattoo your Labubu.
yeah. And the whole thing, the whole reason why I came about is because I actually bought some Labubus online to
You
to
bought
sell.
some Labobos.
They were Labobos, they were Lafufus, you know. But I was lucky enough to where my credit card company, you know, I reported to them. They recorded they reimbursed me for the money, and I've been sitting on them for the longest time trying to figure out what to do. You know, now it's time to release them into the wild, and I thought, you know,
So you're gonna sell
what a cool way to do-
tattooed Lafufus.
yeah. So the Lafufus I'll sell, you know, I'll sell them at a discounted rate if you get a tattoo with it. If not, you know, it'll be a little bit more, you know.
Gotcha.
So that'll be a fun thing to do. It'll be at Geeking Out, like I said, La Mirada, perfect distance for Los Angeles and Orange County heads.
You know, I will say though, man, I don't think anybody should be completely upset if they find a Lafufu. Considering, look at the bootleg market now, right? Like nobody wants the bootlegs when they came out. Everybody wants the bootlegs later on.
Right.
So I mean, look at all the. I mean, it's gotten to the point now where it's like out of control as far as like. I mean, and I feel like still people are still, you know, pulling like Motuko lines out of, you know. I'm like, where the, you know, I didn't even, you know. So, you know, I think like, you know, I think it's almost like. If I mean, I'm not collecting Labubus, but if I was, I mean, I would be looking for the good bootlegs, right? Because I think, you know, maybe, you know, because in like another 20 years, well, I mean, like if you want to hold it for 20 years, but I mean, there's going to be a point where, you know, just like everything else, potentially, I mean, you know, to me, Labubu is a craze, you know. I mean, I know the artist is a serious artist. He's been working on the character for a while, and you know, I don't think it's something that's going to completely go away, but I don't think it's something necessarily that you're going to see, you know, in the news. I think there'll still be a community and look,
a little
I mean,
subculture.
like a subculture.
Yeah.
You know, I think there will still be. I think there'll probably be less celebrity attached with it in the future. Is what I'm kind of getting.
Unless there's a movie or like a TV show.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
look, there's probably so many things in the work. You know, like I'm like, I know there's going to be a Supreme Labubu. Like I would I mean, I would bet on it that the next release they're gonna have like a Labubu wearing a Supreme box tee. You know, and so that will bring up the hype. You know, the auctions are still going crazy for his art and stuff. So, you know, I mean, I think there's something. And then, I mean, think about all the knockoffs. I mean, or people, you know, like making like anti-Labubu stuff.
Oh,
and,
gosh.
you know,
Anti-Labubu Club.
yeah, exactly. I'm sure that already exists. And
Right?
somebody's at Disney is wearing it.
Just this morning, I saw, I think it was Lizzo that wrote a Labubu song, and they were dancing, and there was this huge Labubu dancing to Lizzo and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's
still going on.
They'll probably have Labubu in the next Squid Games. You're like, no.
I don't mix my Chinese with my Korean properties. I don't know.
Sorry.
Yeah, but that's going on Geeking Out. August 9th in La Mirada. They have an Instagram if you want more info.
All right,
Geeking Out or Toy Depot.
I think they.
I'm just wrapping it. I'm just wrapping it up. I know. I'm just wrapping it up.
I think they know. But
in case they're listening, make sure I'm throwing it in.
Yeah, no, it's good. But he'll put it in the description.
Yeah,
he'll have the.
So I see we've been kind of neglecting the comments up till now. You want to go in and say hi to some of our viewers and see what they've been saying about us?
Yeah, we could.
Oh
wow, yeah. There's a lot going on.
See stuff about glizzies and footlongs. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to get distracted. We need to keep things on the right track.
We're also we want to get to the point where like you guys can do like super chats. So you'll have to like fight for who will pay attention to with your money, with your hard-earned money.
Yeah, we need more viewers for that. So we need your help. Whoever's not watching now but watching later, we need you to smash that like, comment, and subscribe.
Yeah, and just to kind of give you guys an idea of like, essentially this podcast started because Ronnie. We've become really close friends, and a lot of times we're just you've probably seen. I mean, if you've seen us, you've probably seen us together at the flea market or different places. But we'll just start to kind of get on these like tangents about things in the hobby or collectible scene or pop culture, and we just start talking. And this was something that I kind of always in the back of my mind was like, oh, it'd be cool to have a podcast, and and so it really was just like, hey, like, why don't we just do a podcast where we're kind of talking about stuff that we're into?
Yeah.
And, I'm sure there's other people out there that might be interested. And then, look, we're also, we're planning on having guests. So, I think, I don't know at what point, we're going to kind of just sort of get our show going and like kind of figure out our footing and stuff. But, we want to bring on people that have, collectors, artists, people that have interesting stories, and try to, and people that you maybe have never, that you don't know about or you haven't heard from before. Because to me, we're both very passionate about collecting, and, I've become a dealer out of necessity. Same with Ronnie to a point. It's like I just think it's kind of inevitable when you're collecting. Eventually, you get to the point where you're like, okay, well, I think I'm going to start selling too.
Yeah.
And so it's like we might be talking about what's in the news or just like kind of like giving our advice about how to collect, because I actually listen to more like political podcasts than collectible podcasts, but from what I've kind of seen in the kind of collectible sort of world is like everything's always about like how much money something's worth.
Exactly. Or
how big the flip is. It's like you have all this content out about people who are like, oh, I bought this for this and I'm selling it for this. And, that's look, that's great. I mean, I think like when it comes down to it, I mean, I think that sometimes that's the most exciting, obviously, and it's stuff that we'll talk about, anytime you see like a big auction number or something. But, I think that there's, I think kind of talking about experiences and, tips or quarter suggestions, because, at the end of the day, it's like, to me, it like should be fun.
Of course. Yeah. Well,
Well, I mean, that's why we're in the fun shop.
shop.
Yeah. But, but you also, I think the thing is like trying to be conscious of all the aspects of collecting.
Right.
Right. Even, I was like joking with somebody, I noticed the other day that, this guy I follow, Darren Ravel, who's like a, really big collector. He was reposting about somebody who started a company to help people with collecting problems.
Oh, CA.
Collectors Anonymous. Yeah, maybe I have to join that. But no, it's like I think sometimes though, I mean, because a lot of people, they get into collecting, especially you see this in the sports card world, because sports cards, it's become this thing where everybody's sort of chasing the grand prize. Right. And so there are obviously pure collectors who, are buying their favorite players and buying their favorite teams. But there's a lot of people that are getting into it because they think it's kind of this like get rich quick kind of thing. Or, they'll put out a card and say, okay, this is a one of one, and then all of a sudden you might have like, this shop saying we'll put a bounty of 50,000, and you have this other person saying we'll put a bounty 75, 100, and so it gets to the point where you're kind of just like buying this stuff
based on the money,
trying to just find one card. And the odds, it's like you might as well try to play the lotto.
Yeah, right.
Well, because it's like, with the lotto, I mean, there's a chance you can't win, and in this case, I mean, more than likely somebody's going to find the one of one. But still,
same premise.
It's the same premise,
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people get, and so it's like, we want to be the least like I said, I've been doing this since I've been buying and selling since I was a kid. I've been on eBay since 1998. Not that I like to say I'm an expert or anything, but I've been around, so I know a few things about some things.
Yeah.
So whatever.
Of course.
I don't know.
Of course.
And then we're gonna do some show and tell. We're just trying to figure it out. We actually have some. We should show them. Why don't you show them? We have some. We can show them the other. Surprised you didn't show them the other cameras yet.
Yeah, we didn't really get into it, and like most of it was kind of back and forth today.
Right.
So I didn't really, didn't feel like any need to bring out any of the camera angles, to show anything.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to show, or?
No, I mean, I don't. There's nothing I want to show today per se. I think one thing we're kind of working on is trying to figure out a way to. If I want to show off some stuff, like, here I guess you could cut to me and I could show. I could show some stuff.
Okay.
Let's see how it works. We'll kind of test it out.
Oh.
Wait, that's you.
Oh, that's me, and that's you.
Yeah. So here, hey, you get a new perspective. So this was like something I bought at the flea market this weekend. It was a bunch of Polaroids of a like a photo, like different photo shoots for sexy girls, and this I actually really liked this one. This was one of It's of a guy tattooing a woman's butt.
Why is the image crop so small? Those like test Polaroids.
Yeah, these are like test Polaroids.
Polaroid land cameras.
Yeah, they would. Photographers would when photographers would have these connected to their cameras. So obviously back then you couldn't see an instant shot. So they would sort of take a picture to get the lighting right. Or the frame.
So kind of obsolete these days. Do photographers even take test pictures, or they just with digital they just shoot away and then they edit later and figure out?
Yeah, I mean, I think film photographers still use Polaroids for sure, or or now they could also have a digital camera connected to their whatchamacallit. They could have it connected to like their photo, or just take a digital photo first just to kind of see how it looks. But most professional photographers are still using the Polaroids.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, I guess it depends, right? It just depends on, I think, the setting and how quick they need to show something to somebody. Or I mean, I think just some people too. They just might get a better view out of a Polaroid than they would out of a digital photo.
Right, right. And I love Polaroids. So
I know you love Polaroids.
No complaints about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean,
we have a couple of minutes that we could see. I mean, we could ask anyone if they have any questions.
Okay, terrific.
Yeah.
Boys and girls,
anybody have any questions? Yes, thank you. Yeah, if you please, you hear this every podcast, subscribe, like,
comment.
We want to get our follower count up.
Finally, you're paying attention to us.
Yeah, finally. Sorry, guys. Well, it's good to see all the a bunch of people that we know, and thanks for being here with us on our first and our premiere episode. We hope to have also we might as well tell people now. Our plan is to be here every Wednesday.
Yeah, every Wednesday at 5 right now. Yeah. Until that doesn't work out for some reason. I mean, if that's okay with you guys. Let me see. Couple of things to wrap up. At 7 p.m., why don't you guys go to Whatnot? Our friends Can't Quit You Baby at Toy Depot are having a Whatnot sale. Freedom 666, I think, is the profile at Whatnot. Freedom 666 Whatnot. They have great vintage, toys and just knickknacks and finds. Go check them out on Whatnot. Maybe you'll dig it and buy some stuff. Maybe you won't. Also, just so you know, last thing of warning, maybe, you pay attention, maybe you don't, but we are in Mercury retrograde right now. So you guys, just tread lightly, take care of yourselves. Don't go too fast, kind of slow down, So I don't know. That's kind of my 2 cents. That's my little PSA. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess this is a pretty fun first episode.
Yeah. It was started a little rocky.
Had a little
smooth landing. Learned a few more things, and it'll be even better next time.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was fun. So yeah, we're gonna wrap it up for today. That's been our first episode. We hope you had a fun time, and we will be here next week, same time. So just follow us on Instagram. What's the Instagram again?
I think it's just the Funshop Podcast.
The Funshop.
No. Sorry, Instagram is Greg_and_Ron. It's Greg and Ron.
Greg and Ron.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
We'll put it. It's gonna. All of our links will be in the description. So, if you don't follow us, please do, and join us next week at the same time, 5 p.m. Pacific.
All right. Thanks, guys. See you next time.
See ya.
Hold on. Let me do the lead out.